I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Okay, there's that coming on. Cool. All right. Hopefully this goes.
Okay. Well, we'll
Okay.
keep trying until we get it right.
Absolutely. Thank you for bearing with me too. I had a whole week of, I showed up places that I was not scheduled to be, and I didn't show up places I was scheduled to be.
You had a rough week.
I did. Yeah. I've centered and grounded now though, so hopefully we'll be okay now.
All righty.
Yeah. All right. I guess I will do. Yeah. Today we're talking with Cie Adams. I'm going to start that over. I've got this better. All right. Yeah. Today we're talking with Cie Adams. She is a USA Today best-selling fiction author who also writes under the pseudonym of Cie Adams. She writes urban fantasy, paranormal romance, fantasy, and mystery, and is the author or co-author of over 20 books and innumerable short stories. These have also been multiple international translations of various novels she has authored. Good afternoon, Cie. How are you doing?
Well, it's a good day, and I'm very glad to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
Computer tried to launch something I didn't want it to. You were about to hear the James Patterson Master Class.
Oh, all right.
But thank you for having me here, and I appreciate it very much. As you said, I have written 20 books thus far and innumerable short stories. I'm very pleased to let you know that one of our books was chosen by BookScan as being one of the 101 best romance novels of the last 10 years.
Holy cow.
Touch of Evil.
Okay.
And so, and that was recently re-released, so it's actually available for readers, and I was just terribly excited to hear that. I didn't even know until somebody tweeted about it, and I was like, woo!
Touch of Evil. That's fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm just thrilled.
Touch of Evil was I'm trying to find it here.
It was the Kate Riley Thrall books.
Right, okay. Yeah, I thought it was, but of course, my printer decided to not want to work, and I'm scrolling up and down my notes real quick.
Not a problem. Yeah, that was a 3-book series. It was Touch of Evil, Touch of Madness, and Touch of Darkness. Mm-hmm. And it's actually one of my favorites. So I thought that the second and third book were stronger, but the romantic elements in the first book were stronger. So I was very honored, and I'm very pleased, and I hope people will go out and buy it.
Already did it, already read it, thought it was great. Just absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Let me see. I think I've read all of the series now, so far anyway. And if you'd like to tell us a little bit about all of the series and what you've got planned and in the work, that would be wonderful.
Well, let's see. We've done some individual books, but mostly we do write in series. Now, Kathy L. Clamp and I were co-authors for a number of years, and our first series together was the Sazi series, and it started with Hunter's Moon, and it went on for about 8 books, and you can find them because they've got moon in the cover.
Right.
The title, it's Hunter's Moon, Moon's Web, Captive Moon. All of the books are moon books because they're about shapeshifters.
Right.
And our second series was indeed Touch of Evil, Touch of Madness, and Touch of Darkness. And that was the Kate Riley Thrall books. And like I said, recently the first book was re-released, and I just told you about the honor I received, and I was very, very excited about that. Now, Kathy and I also did the beginning of the Celia Graves Bloodsinger novels. And we did that under Cie Adams because we had booksellers complaining about, well, who do we shelve under? Do we shelve under Adams? Do we shelve under Clamp? How do we, shelve these books?
Right.
So we were given a pen name by our publisher, Tor, and we have written the Celia Grave novels under that name. And last year, Kathy and I decided to start writing separately. And she will be continuing the Sazi books, and her newest Sazi book, the relaunch of the series, is Forbidden, and it came out this month, and it's very exciting. I am continuing the Celia Graves Bloodsinger novels under Cie Adams, under my own name, Cie Adams, and I am writing the Fae series, which is the first book of which is out, and it's called The Exile, and it's about Brianna Hyde, who is a half city, half she of the Fae, and she is the daughter of King Vu, who is High King, and a human, and she has spent a great deal of her life in the human world. Fun book. I enjoyed it mightily. She runs a metaphysical shop, and she gets dragged back into fairy politics, and in a big way. A lot of fun. I really, really enjoy that series. I am currently working on the second book in the series, which is going to be called The Rescue.
Ooh.
I've just finished doing revisions to the next Celia Grave book, which is All Your Wishes, and involves a Ifrit of the Jinn. So I'm very excited. Things are moving along very nicely.
Marvelous. You're doing the short story as well. Wizard of Oz, is that correct?
Yes, the Wizard of Oz. Someone who has gotten in trouble betting is involved in that short story. And it is in the collection of short stories that I am putting together that will hopefully come out for Christmas release.
Okay.
And I'm putting that together myself. It is going to have a Sazi story featuring Raven Ramirez. It's going to have a Thrall story featuring Carlton. And it's going to have, again, Celia Graves and the Wizard of Oz. And all sorts of other short stories that I have worked on over the years that I've kind of gathered together and tried to polish up, and things that are the possibility of new series in the future when I get done with what I'm doing, which is keeping me plenty busy. So I'm very, very excited. It's a very busy year, but it's a good year.
Good. Very good. Always good to keep busy if you can.
Well, so far.
Exactly, yes. I'm not going to knock on wood. I've already heard the dogs going off about something else. Excuse me. Can I ask who is the subject of the Wizard of Oz?
The Wizard of Oz is Celia Graves, and she is moving into her new office, and they have an unexpected client come in while she's in the process of moving, and it is someone from her past that has gotten in trouble. And I don't want to say too much about it.
It's not her mom, is it?
Oh, no. Her mother is still happily, well, not so happily, in prison.
Okay, good. Very good.
Yeah, her mom is a piece of work, and her mom is a constant thorn in her side. And I did that because it is a burden that people who are the children of alcoholics have to bear. And I thought that is one of the things that would make a character very strong. If they grew up in an atmosphere like that, they would need to be incredibly strong people to grow up and become a success. And so I chose that for her because I thought it would make her the person that she needed to be to run the business for herself and to face down the monsters and to do the things that she does.
Sure. You did a great job of it, too. You can kind of relate on different levels of, my mom wasn't anywhere near as bad as that, but still we had, she had alcoholic tendencies, and it could make things a little dicey sometimes.
Yeah, well, and I wanted to handle it sensitively because
sure.
there's a lot of pain involved for people who have alcoholic parents, and I don't want to diminish that, and I wanted to reflect that fairly accurately. Now, it's a book of fiction, and consequently, you know, some of it's a little exaggerated, and there's magic in this world, which there isn't necessarily in ours, or at least not presented in the same way. So I wanted to make it realistic, but at the same time I wanted to address the kinds of emotional issues that come with that, because there are scars.
Yes, always. Yep. It kind of depends on how deep they go.
Yes. Right. And, you know, I want to say something here because it is my usual disclaimer, okay? I have a standard disclaimer. People have a tendency to assume that if you write something well, that you must have experienced it. This is what research is for, guys. I have written about serial killers. I'm not one. I have written from the male point of view. I'm not one. You know, I have written my characters doing some pretty kinky things, and I'm just not that limber. So please understand that happy families make for happy authors. They make for truly boring characters. I give my characters pretty messed up personal lives. That doesn't reflect on anybody in my real life.
And it's you do a very good job of it too. I'm just thrilled to death of the whole series, and you know, sit down and it's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and going, oh gosh, when do you have to be up early?
Well, I'm glad if you enjoyed them that much. That is a sign of a good book.
Yes. Completely. Now, okay, with that in mind, like I said, I noticed that a lot of several of the characters were Catholic in their belief system. Are you that, or did you draw from your research again?
Actually, I am Catholic.
Okay.
So it was actually one of the easier ways to pop in a belief system because I already have a certain amount of knowledge about it.
Sure.
So that Kate in particular is very Catholic.
Yes.
She just really is. She's very Irish and she's very Catholic.
Yes, she is.
and there's just no getting around that. That's part of who she is. But one of the things that I find interesting is I know it's not that way for all people, but for me, my characters are people. And they appear in my imagination, and they have their traits. And it's one of those things that they have these traits whether or not I want them to.
And there you are.
I have friends who have to work to create characters, and they have to pull out all the, I'm going to make it that, you know, no, my characters walk on and say hi.
Yep. Hello, here I am.
And they're pretty much fully formed, and they are operating in their own reality. And I have a hard time. I don't tend to change them much. Now, every once in a while, the editor will want to change them, and it will become very difficult for me because, to me, these are real people. And I have one character who I had named him Randy in the first draft. And he was a werewolf. And the editor says, we are not going to have a Randy werewolf. We're just not. We're not going there.
I didn't even think of it. And then, okay.
So she changed his name. And because we love our editor, we do what we're supposed to do, and we changed his name. Unfortunately, at least once in every book, I will accidentally write his name down as being Randy.
Okay.
We have to do word search for Randy in every single Celia Graves book. Because, I still think of him that way, and I have to be very, very careful. And it's because, to me, these people walk in fully formed, whether they're Catholic or whether they're like Brianna and have a completely different faith system because she is not from Earth.
Right.
She was born and raised in Fairy. So her belief system is completely different, and her mother was pagan. So, it's one of those that I have a hard time sometimes because my people are a little too real to me.
So Randy was actually Kevin?
Kevin was actually Randy originally.
Kevin.
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, by the way.
and and like I say, every time I do a draft of the book, I have to word search for Randy.
That's I'm sorry. That's cute. That's very cute. Do you favor one series over the other, or you like them all evenly?
I like different ones for different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I have favorite books within a series, or I have favorite characters, because since the characters are so real to me, some of them, I really like them. I would like them as people. I would invite them over for dinner. It's a real shame they're not real.
Exactly.
On the other hand, there are people who I would really just soon not, but that doesn't make them any less valid or any less important to the books. It takes all kinds to make up any world, whether it's a real world or a fictional world.
Yes.
And, the thing is that they will have attitudes and opinions that I don't necessarily share. But there are people out in our world that have those opinions, and they get to.
Yes.
And the characters, if they are going to feel real to you, have to have their own backgrounds and their own opinions and their own religion and whatever. Not everybody is going to agree. Otherwise, there would be no conflict and it'd be boring, and why would you read it?
Why go on, right? It would make an awfully short action-adventure story.
Yeah. So, and it's important, in my opinion, it's also important that the villains get just as much complexity or more as anyone else. They have reasons for doing what they do. Okay, even if the reason is just they're completely and totally bug nuts, they still have reasons. And they're not much of interest if you don't show them as having those reasons and those complexities. They are just as much a character as your hero or heroine.
Sure. Absolutely. Let me see. A favorite character?
Oh, too many to count.
I know, that's a tough one. I couldn't tell you.
If you were asking me who surprised me the most and was really fun to write, I would have to say Carlton was a hoot. He was supposed to be a one-time walk-on, threaten the hero, walk out. And, that's all he was supposed to do. He is a former NBA star who is a vampire. He is huge. He is threatening. He is scary. He was supposed to be the ultimate threat. And it worked.
Yes. Once.
But the thing about it is that character wasn't done. I would have her going for a run, and he'd show up next to her. He would just show up, and it made the book so much better, and he was so much fun. He ended up being actually a fairly major secondary character in the course of the books, and it worked, but originally he was intended, he was a surprise. He was intended to be a one-shot walk-on, and he just proved me so wrong. As far as romantic leads, I have a really, really soft spot for Raven from the Sazi.
Oh, yes.
And that is why Raven is going to get to have his short story. So he's going to be featured. Kathy is taking the Sazi as a series, but I had written Raven's story in a couple different drafts, and they never got finished and they never got published. And when we divided things up, she got the Sazi, but I kept Raven.
Excellent. Very good.
So my last And final thing that will be affiliated from my computer to the Sazi is going to be the short story with Raven in it. But Kathy is going to get a chance to check it out and make sure I don't step on any toes. But I'm actually looking very much forward because he was my favorite romantic lead.
Oh, he was very nice, and he kind of got stepped over several different times, it seemed like.
Yeah. Well, and his father is one of my favorites, too. I think Raphael is pretty cool.
Oh, definitely, yes.
So, but it's very funny because Kathy and I had very different favorites. Her favorite, I think, if you ask her, would probably be Tony. So, it's interesting that, different people like different characters, and that's good because then you have appeal to a wide variety of readers, too.
Sure. I liked, I couldn't decide on Nikolai Molotov, if he was a good guy or a bad guy or just somewhere that rode the line. But I did like how you wrote in about the Molotov cocktails.
Yes, Nikolai, I'm not sure Nikolai knows whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. He's interesting.
Yes, very. Yes, extremely. It was a cliffhanger, though. I did read Forbidden, and it addressed, several of the characters, or at least some of the youngsters we had seen previously. But there was, there were a bunch of them that we didn't know how they ended, and I was like, oh, golly, I'm going to have to get Kathy Clamp on at some point and ask her.
Well, if you want, I can have her send you an email.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
She'd love to speak to you.
Okay.
I'm sure she would. So send me an email, and I'll forward it on to her.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah. I was going to ask, do you have a favorite author besides yourself and Kathy, probably?
I have so many favorite authors. It is so awesome. I have always been a big reader. I've always loved it. Jim Butcher's a big favorite.
Oh, yeah.
I love Robert B. Parker's books. Dick Francis. I am a big mystery reader.
Okay.
Rachel Caine. Charlene Harris.
Oh, yeah.
I have read so many, and so many of them are favorites. Elizabeth Peters. And just, it is wonderful to escape in a good book.
Yes, it is. I agree. Get away from it all.
Yes.
Yes.
And boy, their problems make mine look simple.
Yeah, mine too, actually. I was in the Thrall series. I was surprised at how almost, I'm not going to say the werewolves were delicate, but they weren't quite as hardy as they are in a lot of the other series, and different stories, different authors, and everything. Do you think they might toughen up, or they just seemed awfully liable to be, they got knocked out a lot and they got put down a lot?
Well, it was one of those that I didn't want them to be too much the focus of the book.
Okay.
And I didn't want them to take away from Kate's abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was one of those that it's like trying to find a balance where they're tough, but they, the vampires were the big threat.
Yes.
And so I wanted to make sure that the big bad was a big bad, and it wasn't like, well, yeah, they're the big bad, but, the werewolves can take them out at any time, so what's the problem?
Right. Mm-hmm.
If it's going to be a real threat to the humans, then I have to make somebody the top dog, and it wasn't the dogs.
Although Fido was, giving Lewis a run for his money, or he wanted. And you said, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I love that he called him Fido.
Yes, he cracked me up.
He was a smartass. I liked Carlton.
Oh, yes. Completely. And, and she's Buffy and keeps saying the big bad. I figure, you must be a Buffy fan because, Spike was the big bad. And then he gets tased and goes down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let me see. I've got... Oh, when did you start writing?
I have been writing since I was a little kid. When I picked up my first picture book, I wanted to start writing. I have been writing professionally for about 10 or 11 years. And it's been wonderful and exciting. It's been interesting how much the industry has changed in 10 years. It's like everything changes to the point where I have to really scramble to keep up with how the industry is evolving, which is good because it's evolving in ways that are helping the reader. Mm-hmm. But it is very tough to keep up with it as an author. And the whole landscape is changing. The brick and mortar stores are disappearing, and hard copies versus electronic, and traditional publishing versus self-publishing versus the small presses, and the cost of physical books and printing them and storing them, and increases costs to the publisher. But then again, there's so much piracy in the electronic world. I mean, it is painful. I have known writers who had to quit writing because so many of the copies of their work were stolen that they couldn't make money.
Oh, shoot. But yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem with all the industries probably. But yeah, I can see that very, very clearly.
But, she was an indie author with a small press. And if she had gotten money for all of the copies that were stolen, she would have made a good living. As it was, her press went out of business because of piracy.
Oh, shit.
And she quit writing. She says there is no point. And people think that piracy is a victimless crime. No, it really isn't.
No, not at all.
And authors really don't make that much per book, particularly, mid-list and independent authors, so that it is tragic how many people can't afford to write for a living anymore.
Right. Darn it. All right. So everybody listening, don't go steal the books off the internet. Go buy the books so that they can continue writing and we can continue enjoying these stories, silly people.
And if you can't afford to buy a book, go to the library. They have them electronically, too.
Yes, they do. They don't have yours electronically, but they can get them.
Yes. Well, and at one point, early on in our career, it's not true now, but early on in our career, our books were not available in e-format.
Right.
Well, in that case, you kind of could understand the pirates who wanted it on e-format. Okay, I'm not going to really get too mad at you when it's not available, but now they all are.
Yes, they are.
And there's no excuse. And, I'm sorry, but that's just flat stealing.
It is. Yep. And it's not right.
So anyway, off my hobby horse.
No, I enjoy the ebooks now because my eyes are getting a little older and, they're old diabetic eyes. So the bigger print, I can enhance the print size and everything. And it's just way better.
Well, and we're also available on audiobooks. I have had a couple of relatives who are visually impaired, and they have the books on CD, or they can get them on download as audiobooks, and they're really liking that.
Oh, good. I tried it once, and the character was so far away from anything I might have imagined or wanted to hear that I went, well, next. I'll just read.
Yeah. Well, you are lucky if you get a reader that matches and that is a real good fit.
Oh, absolutely.
And we have been really lucky with Celia Graves. I think she does a fabulous job, and it actually sounds like Celia to me. I would have been a little worried if for the Celia Graves books they'd picked, Lawrence Fishburne.
That might have been bad.
I'm sure he has a wonderful voice, but it wouldn't quite work for me.
Right, yes. Okay. Well, all right. Something I had kind of made a mental note of as I'm reading through all the series, that there were a couple of phrases that came up, like no problema and easy peasy, and I think there were a few others, but do you use those regularly, or did you just throw them into the books for flavoring, so to speak?
Well, I don't necessarily, but I know people who do.
Okay.
And most people have catchphrases.
Absolutely.
So, no problema is Donna's catchphrase.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And as long as she is saying that, you're fine. When she's not saying that, then you're not so fine. and I have noticed that about several people, that they have little catchphrases. So when you're developing a character and a character exists, they usually have their own intonations and their own phrasing, and that's good because you don't want all of your characters to sound alike. They shouldn't all sound like they come from the same background and have the same education.
True.
They should have flavor.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And once again, it puts layers on all of the different players and characters, and it's just a wonderful job that you do on that. I mean, I'm not a weirdo stalker or anything, but I really enjoy you and Kathy, both your guys' writing style. Could you tell me how you actually co-write books? I was a little curious about that one.
When we co-wrote, generally speaking, we would discuss things out ahead of time. We would talk about it. And then a lot of times what we did is we would each be working on a different book, and we would do the first draft of our individual books, and then we would pass and trade, and the other person would edit it and make changes and additions and basically do the second pass of the book. And then we trade it back and discuss things and accept or reject different changes or run with changes that had been made, so that we each had some input. Now, there were times when life intervened and it didn't work out quite that way, but that was generally how we started it, and it was the ideal. And we used to, back when we lived in Denver, we used to meet up for breakfast and shoot pool.
Oh,
and
cool.
We would discuss all kinds of worlds and stories over the pool table. And it really was a lovely way to work on our writing and our pool game.
That is an excellent idea. I would have been there, cheering you all on.
Well, Wendy, I really appreciate you having had me, but I am going to have to wrap it up.
Okay. Alrighty.
Thank you so much. And you have a lovely evening, and be sure to send me that email, and I'll make sure to pass it on to Kathy.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Cie. We will talk. I'll get this edited up and submit it to you for final approval, and then we'll get a show scheduled.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.